Hey, I'm Jacob Sheriff, and this is my podcast. I'm joined today by my good friend, Tyler McKinney, who's going to be playing host, and special episode, I am with my beautiful and wonderful wife, Hannah. She has joined the show as well. Today, we're going to talk marriage.
All right. Well, let's jump into it. I'm very excited that you're here, Hannah. I know you don't get a lot of the spotlight.
Yeah.
So,
No.
yes. And
It'll be fun.
yeah, it's going to be a great time, hopefully. We'll see how well I can host and manage and play this host game. I like that you put it that way.
You're going to make us pick a fight.
Yes, this will be like
Crucial
the Jerry Springer show. I'm going to do my
There's a
best.
special announcement coming.
Who's wrong? But no, I think really I just wanted to hear a little bit about y'all's story. Y'all have been major leaders in my life pretty much since birth. Mm-hmm. You were there actually when I was born, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
crazy story.
Crazy story.
And but I think there's a lot to be learned from what you guys have been through. We've talked briefly last episode actually about a period in your engagement that was
Did not go so
a
well.
little rocky.
It was quite rocky.
But I think getting to know a little bit about kind of who you are, how your relationship started, how it progressed, where it is now, and what are the things that you pull on or the things that you guys lean towards or all those things. So I think we'll kick it off with something simple, which is I want to know how you guys met. It's probably like this really great elementary story that I can't wait for.
It's not quite as interesting as it might sound. So Hannah's family stumbled onto our church and actually through the academy when you were how old? You're like kindergarten.
Yes. First grade.
First grade.
We moved here to Durant.
So moved to Durant first grade, started commuting from Ardmore to Durant to go to school. And she was in first grade and just got into the school, got into the church and building relationships. And over the course of time, Hannah, who's just slightly older than my little sister, her and her sisters ended up being friends with my sisters. And so she, from first, second, third grade, by that time,
Third grade,
was around my family a lot.
Yeah.
And I could not have told you who she was.
Classic tale.
As an older brother. This is, a romance made in heaven.
It's a Disney romance.
She probably knew that my sister had older brothers.
But I don't remember them ever.
Nor did you care.
No, I never cared.
She didn't care.
That's awesome.
No, not at all.
So probably by the time she was in early middle school, there would be more awareness of our existence, but nothing, because I was 4 grades older, so I don't care about my sister's friends and all that. So I'm doing something else. But the summer after I graduated high school and she graduated 8th grade, at different times, it wasn't in one moment, but it was within a very short period of time, God spoke to both of us that we were going to be married.
Should I tell that story a little bit?
It throws me into the bus,
I know,
but
so I don't want to do that. But
you're just so sweet. You can go ahead and be truthful.
I want to hear
you
this.
want to hear this story. So
I'm sure the listeners want to hear this.
So this was the year that our church had the fire, and we were spending some time over at his house, and honestly, that if I go back and think about it, that's the first time I really ever remember him being there. So all those years of going back and forth, so I would have been about to enter high school. That's a lot of years to never recognize someone, and so
We're not being facetious on that.
Yeah.
No, I believe you. That's why I think
knew
it's great.
she had friends and I knew of them and I knew her name, but they're intentionally ignoring my sister and her friends because I'm your high school student. I've got other things to do.
Yes.
he's too cool. So.
And she's like, you're an idiot. Like, I don't know who you are and I don't really care
neither
either.
do I care.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Jacob makes this dumb comment on the couch.
So I'm 17, just about to turn 18. So I'm
So
like
prone to making dumb comments.
Yes.
So dumb comments is
and
a frequent thing coming out of my mouth.
Yes.
And he said something like, I wish I had a girlfriend sitting by me. That's all he said.
Love it.
And
I'm on the couch. And
Why have I not heard this story?
oh yeah, I mean,
if I'm the one that usually preaches and tells the stories, you think I'm going to tell that story?
I feel so much better about myself.
yes. And so I'm not joking. I was standing there, and it was like the Lord told me, "You're going to be his wife." And I remember in my mind, like it was as if my senses had been heightened to this moment. I mean, it never had crossed my mind. And I remember like just wrestling with God in that moment and saying, "That's weird. No," kind of like just my in thought response.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I kept it to myself. I never said anything to anyone because I didn't know where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, it's possible that it's even that same like weekend, because I think you'd come over to the house for the weekend because my brother and I during that summer we moved into the church to rebuild the church, and we had like one weekend where we came home and slept. And so I think it was that weekend. I don't remember exactly, but it could be after I said that dumb thing out of my mouth that I felt like the Lord told me, like, she's going to be your wife. And the next thought, this sounds terrible. The next thought that came to my mind. So I'm 17, just graduated high school, very focused on rebuilding our church. God's already working on me on a number of different things, namely falling in love with the church again.
Yeah.
So like I'm already kind of wrestling with a lot of stuff, just in like passion and pursuit, and not wrestling in a bad way, just really pursuing the Lord in that summer more than I had up to that point. It didn't make me less sarcastic and dumb, but really focused. And I'm about to turn 18, preparing for college. There's a few things that I'm preparing for. And she is an 8th grader who was 14, just graduated 8th grader at 14 and is preparing for high school. And I hear the Lord say, she's going to be your wife. And the first thought was, that's perverted.
Yeah.
The very first thought after I feel like I hear the Lord was, that's perverted.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do with it. So I'm sure I shut up and just ignored her for a while. It's like, what do I do with that?
Yeah.
Because, then the second thought was like, and it's illegal.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't think much about it. And sometime either that within a few days or by the end of that summer, I went to my dad and I said, like, I think I heard this. I can't shake it. So it's not like just this random thought that just passes.
Right.
There's something about it that's lingering, and I don't know. I don't even know if I heard the Lord, but that's what I heard. And so what do I do? And he goes, nothing.
Smart man.
He says, listen, like there's all sorts of reasons why that's dangerous. It could be God. And I would love that. I think she's great. I think her family's great. We're close families. But you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So you just pray about it, and we won't do anything until she turns 16, which is about a year and a half away. And so for a year and a half, like I'm kind of around their family. By that time, Josh, who is the co-host that Hannah is replacing, Josh had worked in the department that I was working in. So we were coworkers. So I was developing a friendship with him, and we hung out together. So I'd go over to their house because they were still friends with my sister. And I loved basketball. My sister played basketball. She played basketball. Hannah was a star on the basketball court.
I was a freshman when Hannah was a senior.
Okay.
And
Hannah just
I got to see it.
For YouTube viewers and listeners of the podcast, Hannah is a legend in our school. Took her team to 3 state championships, multiple awards.
There's an award at our school named after her.
The Hannah Needham Award.
Yeah.
And so she's a legend. So, I loved basketball, and my sister played basketball with her. So like I was going to ball games and in that time period, I just was like, all right, I got to discern the Lord on this. So at least I need to see if she's a okay person. She seems nice and really sweet, but I don't know. Years around each other, I don't know her.
Right.
And so time went on and I couldn't shake it. I even tried, this may sound a little strange, so I need to make sure I use the words carefully. I was open to other relationships.
Right.
So there were other girls that maybe would have been more natural for me to be in a relationship with that I did not pursue relationship, but it's like in my heart as a way to test this, I started at least being open to maybe if something else comes into my heart. I know the difference between just a desire and something that I feel is from the Lord when it comes to a relationship. So I'm open to that. And there were 2-3 other girls that probably would have been a potential in that. And I just, in my heart, I knew this isn't it. There's just something's not right about this. it might work. It might be a good relationship. I can just tell this isn't it. And so after she turned 16, my dad or my parents, I can't remember if it was just my dad or my parents, sat down with her parents and basically said, are you even open to this? And I don't remember if they had an immediate answer or they just needed to pray about it.
Yeah, I think they just said, let's talk to her and we'll pray about it. And so kind of went from there. And, so at
that time, you had just turned 16 and I was 19.
Yes. Because we're about 3.5 years apart.
Yeah. So you just turned 16, I was 19. All right. So.
Yeah. And I think for me, in that time, I knew what the Lord had been speaking to my heart, but I've grown so much even in personality over the years. It was still really hard for me to swallow. I was thinking about the relationships that would affect and how I think that is one reason why God had to even speak to me so boldly is because, this wasn't just an easy thing to embark on.
Yeah.
It affected relationships. It affected things that I had to be sure that I was hearing God, as well as being young and walking that out. I don't know. It drew me closer to the Lord, and then for that, I'm very thankful. But initially, I was like, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure. So I didn't really give him a eager yes in the beginning, but it was just kind of like, I'd be willing to be friends. But we joke because, Jacob was so good at talking and I wasn't. And so he would interview me. Basically, that's how we got to know each other. And he had to think of things so I wouldn't just say yes and no.
I learned how not to ask
yes or no questions.
Closed loop, yes, no questions. Because
so he can thank me for some of his communication skills.
There we go.
I started asking questions. She's like, yeah, no.
I was super guarded of my own heart, though.
Yeah.
And I really did not want to open my heart up to something that would end up being broken in the end.
Yeah.
I just was very cautious to my own hurt sometimes. And I've had to grow and what that means to really share in life together. And obviously we've been married, 13 years, so it's way different. But at that time in my life, I was super guarded.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, pretty much by our second or third conversation, I basically said, I'm in it to win it.
I'm going to marry you.
I'm going to marry you.
He told me that.
Whatever it takes.
Bold move.
I'm going to marry you.
Kind of like the bold move.
I'm 19, she's 16, and was it sophomore?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to marry you.
Wow.
So you know what I did, if we're just being open and honest
yes,
here?
please.
I went to the bathroom and I cried. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy feels all these things about me and he's going to marry me and I don't know what I feel about him.
I like you yet.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
He's just very, very, very bold from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And again, that going back to what I said, I was super guarded. I was like, is this really what God, I want to listen, I want to obey, but this is hard. And so I don't know what I said to you at that point.
You probably just walked out and didn't come back for a while.
Yeah, I think I called my mom.
Yeah.
I was like, what do I do? But we navigated this type of relationship really young. So our parents were very vital in how we navigated this. And I know that's not everybody's story, but in our case, it needed to be. So.
Yeah. I had to build a relationship with her family, not just her.
Yeah.
Being 16 in high school, I just had to get active in their family's life. And at the time I was working in college, and so life was hard and busy, but I made time for that. And I just had to really pursue her, and she was not wanting to be pursued, but man, I got obstinate on that.
Yeah. He wanted to get engaged while I was in high school.
And she was like, absolutely not.
I was bold enough to say, let's not.
So it sounds like you had a lot of wisdom.
And he was.
So last couple episodes, I think I've mentioned a couple times that I had an achiever mindset.
Yes.
I have a wiring and obstinance towards achievement. And I have a goal. The goal is to be married to you. I do not think we should be married while you're in high school, but would you be open to the day after?
Yes, pretty much.
Wow.
And so it was a whole lot of like, okay, we got to put the brakes on. Like, this is a little fast. And, walking that out and communicating that and really what God began in that season, when really it's not wise to get married at 16. Like, that's just, you just don't do that. I mean, I don't know. I know you used to long ago, but
those were different times.
Yeah, different times. But it began this journey of like us learning how to really have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And we navigated a lot of hard things in that time, and I don't want to jump ahead, but it wasn't easy. And I think that we both are. Well, I feel like I'm jumping too much.
So no, you don't. We're not having to go through every single step of our relationship.
Okay.
This was not a match made in heaven. This was not a romance for the storybooks. Most of our relationship was hard, and people didn't know we actually liked each other.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I mean, since you mentioned my brother earlier, Josh, he was in a relationship with his wife, Audrey. And they would literally sit across the table like this and just lock eyes with each other.
And so he's not on this episode to defend himself.
I know.
So
he can't say a thing.
And I
they
remember,
were so romantic.
And I think that
just in love.
I love this.
Yes.
In love.
Yeah. And
infatuated with each other. The funnest thing was them sitting on the couch and just staring into each other's eyes. And so I'd come in and I would like see if I could break their focus. Nope, you guys are locked on. All right, peace out. I'll talk to you later.
And so then began this comparison game, you know.
Oh, yeah.
We were nothing like that. I honestly don't know if she liked me for most of our relationship.
Yeah, at least that part of it. So, and I mean, so. Gosh.
So our engagement though, so we're 3 years into 2.5, 3 years.
So you figured out she liked you.
More or less. I just, again, this is where I'm just obstinate. I know she likes me. I know she's guarded. I'm going to win her over. But every step of the way, I had to talk with her dad about everything. And so Marcus and I ended up, her father, ended up actually having a close relationship. And he and I have almost nothing in common.
Yeah.
We share no hobbies. We share no interests. The only thing we have in common is his daughter. And so like I needed to pursue a relationship. I got to talk to this guy. I want to honor him. I'm not just trying to get around him. So, I mean, everything from, may I start holding her hand? Like that might sound old fashioned, but it was really good for us to have to, and it was good for me to be uncomfortable. And Marcus, this being his first daughter, was really hard on me. And in the moment I was annoyed, but now like, dear Lord, that was awesome. And I'm very grateful for it. Not only did I learn how to earn trust, but how to grow in my pursuit of her and my respect and honor. And dadgummit, I sowed good seeds. I'm going to reap a harvest. I've got 3 daughters myself. So, I mean, just asking like, can I hold her hand? And he's like, I don't know. Let me talk to her. And the first time I held her hand was like holding a rock. I mean, she just was so cold and just, I mean, anyway, so we grew, and I at least knew she at least liked me and was willing to like me. And so the summer after she graduated high school, I'm like, all right, you put me off long enough. I'm gonna pop the question. And so it was Jubilee, and Friday night was over, and that was one of the first Jubilees. I was the media director, so I had to like produce all of Jubilee. So I exhausted myself on that. Well, her family right after Jubilee was taking a trip with, was it your dad's work or was it your mom's work? Your mom's work down in San Antonio. And they're like, y'all like they were going to bring all their kids. So just a few extra people. Josh and Audrey had just gotten married. And so like, well, why don't y'all come? So you come. I'm like, oh yeah. So I asked Marcus Friday night after Jubilee, I go to their house, we're hanging out, and I find a way to, he and I had a conversation, and I was like, I think this would be awesome if I could ask her. And to my surprise, he said yes. And so I worked really hard on that weekend to craft a time to get her alone on the Riverwalk. And she's like, no, we're going to be with my family here. We're going to be with my family here. I'm like, I just want to take a walk. Just let's just go down the Riverwalk. It would be awesome if it were just the 2 of us. Yeah. She's like, no, what are you doing? Anyway, she was not very cooperative.
Nope, I wasn't.
I found that in most stores,
I know
they aren't.
I would love to say that this
I'm
was
like,
magical and all. And no,
Yeah.
it was just a lot of persistent hard work.
Yeah, it really was. And man, I like look back on it. I'm like, man, I was tough. And yet he still pursued me. So I'm thankful for that.
Those are seeds you sowed though too.
You're
that
right.
hopefully,
No, you're right.
and y'all's girls, yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, I think even during that trip, I said to him, I'm not ready to get married.
I forgot. Okay,
and
so
he has the ring in his
this
pocket.
is like,
Yeah.
I can't. We drove down on Saturday, so this would have been like Sunday or Monday that I was gonna pop the question. And I think it was like Sunday night. I don't think it was.
It was the first night we arrived.
So on the drive, So like this was a long time ago. So I had my cargo shorts on.
with a big
Nice.
box.
Oh, I remember.
And in one of those big old pockets, I had that ring. I'm like, this thing ain't getting away from me. I'm right here. And so it's in my pocket. I'm driving. I think Josh and Audrey were in the back taking a nap.
Yeah.
They were married, and Josh had worked really hard of Jubilee, and so he was just wiped. And so they just slept in the back, and so it's Hannah and I in the front. And she's something, I can't remember what the conversation was, but basically she just said, I'm just not ready to be married. And like, boom, countenance.
This was before all his training about learning to hear hard things and keep it together. Like, he did not keep it together.
So all that statements I made about emotional intelligence,
Oh my God.
that's like,
and I felt
like 6
so
years
bad.
into marriage.
Yes.
This is not early on in our relationship.
Yeah. And I think that, we had walked through a lot of things, even as like my family personally, and Jacob was so great at like just being exactly what we needed in that time. But I can't really recall why I said that in that moment.
Well, there were two things I think that she battled with is probably not the right word, but maybe struggled with or just wasn't certain about, wasn't confident in me about. One, would I take her away from her family?
Yeah, that
so
was a
her
huge
family
fear.
meant a lot to her.
Yeah.
And so there was always this wondering, am I going to steal her away?
Yeah.
And she had observable behavior that could have told that story. I was like, you're crazy, woman. I ain't doing that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Once we're married, like I ain't hanging around as much as I'm hanging around now, but we're going to be hanging around. But like, but that it was just what she genuinely felt that. And the other thing is like, she's a determined individual.
Yeah.
Like she's going to go accomplish something. I'm not sure right now is the right time for me to be weighed down with you.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying probably a little more sarcastic than she was feeling.
I wasn't feeling it that way, but it was kind of that. I mean, I'm out of high school trying to seek the Lord on what he has. And, you mentioned basketball. That was something that was at least an opportunity was to pursue some of that. But I knew that wasn't the direction. I mean, even if I had thoughts about it. And I really wanted to know that we were better together. And I think I was still wrestling, not with was our future together, but were we ready to be that better together?
And patience was not much. The fruits of the Spirit that I exuded, patience was not at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Because I'm at that point, I'm 4 years out of high school. I had graduated college.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to move on to the next phase of my life, which is like I have a career. I've had multiple jobs in multiple industries, so I kind of know what I'm doing now, and I'm ready to move on. And like you're a part of that, so let's go with it.
Yeah.
So we get to San Antonio, and I tell her dad about it, and I'm like, "What the heck do I do?" He's like, "Ask her anyway." Like I can't believe he said that. And so
surprised you twice.
Yeah. So I found a way for her, like, to come with me down the Riverwalk, and there's an amphitheater that it's on Miss Congeniality. So if you watch Miss Congeniality, the scene that they have at the Riverwalk, it's at the top of that amphitheater.
Please tell me you're picturing that in your head. You're just playing Miss Congeniality. You're like, it's going to be just like this.
Oh, man.
It's been a long time since we've told this story, so I got to make sure to get some of the details because there's some
funny.
Oh, there's
very
some
funny. So he takes me to lunch before this event even happened.
Yeah. So yes.
Yeah, and so he takes me to lunch. We're at Chili's and
on the Riverwalk.
On the Riverwalk,
Class.
Just the two of us.
Yeah, just the two of us. And they literally sit us right next to the bathroom. And Jacob has to go to the bathroom, but this is like, I'm sure he's trying to figure out what to do. So he was in there, I felt like, for 45 minutes.
Right. So
not using the bathroom.
One of well, I mean, that's possible. I can't remember, but that is possible. So one of the things that kind of marked our relationship is she communicated better through writing, and words meant a lot to her. So cards was a big deal.
Right.
So I had found a way when the family was in the mall, I had found a card shop like on the other side of the mall. And when I found a window, I ran full speed from one end of the mall to the other to that card shop, grabbed a card, hid it in my pocket, and full speed back before we left. So I have that in my pocket too. So we go to the restaurant, sit right by the bathroom, and I found a pen, and I'm writing, but I'm writing up.
That's what took you so long.
And the pen ink was coming back, so I was running out of ink. So I'd have to do this and then write again because there's nowhere in a bathroom to write. And so I'm trying to figure this out. I'm sweating. It's ridiculous, and I'm an idiot. But anyway, so I've got all this together, and she's still like, I just don't want to be married. So I'm just determined we're going to do this. Yeah. So after lunch and after apparently 45 minutes in the bathroom, her thinking he must be sick. I was just not that way. I'd take her down the Riverwalk. We get on the amphitheater, and I take her to the top of the amphitheater. So you got a pretty good view, and a boat goes by or whatever. But I give her the card, and in the card, I was pronouncing my true love for her and all that kind of stuff. And then I had the question, "Will you marry me?" And as she got to that line, I knelt down and opened the ring. Two things happened simultaneously. A homeless person, this entire amphitheater is open, and a homeless person with their sandwich and brown paper bag sits probably 10 feet from us. The only people in this giant amphitheater, he sits about 10 feet from us and is crinkling the paper while eating a sandwich. And she looks...
Oh, man.
The first thing she said, like, I'm kneeling down, ring open, homeless man eating sandwich. She goes, "Did you get my father's permission?"
I was just making sure he wasn't sneaking by me. So, man, it really
I guarantee
does sound
you my
like,
countenance fell right there.
Yeah. I was really good at taking the wind out of his sails.
That's awesome.
And I do feel bad about that, but
so I got off my knee and sat back down next to her and like, yes.
Yeah.
You walked over, you're like, "Give me some of that sandwich, buddy." I didn't eat anything at lunch.
Exactly. Yeah. So then began, we had talked about that until that moment we would not kiss or, be affectionate in that way. And then here comes our first kiss, and Jacob describes it as kissing a cold rock. I'd never kissed anyone, and neither had he, but he must have practiced before I did or something.
Oh, of course he did.
Yes, because
it's more just like she just like basically just froze and didn't do anything. Just like, I'll receive, but I'm not doing anything.
Odd question here.
Yeah.
Were your eyes open? Because that's the worst.
Yeah.
If it's
I don't.
like nobody wants to kiss that.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I might have been looking over his shoulder because he was facing the wall and I was facing the river, and I'm thinking, who is watching this take place?
I love this.
Anyway, so I don't know. There's still things I have to talk to Jesus about, like why I was so guarded in that way.
So anyway, we
made it there.
Yeah, we made it, and we told the family, and Audrey was super excited, which she's a really excitable person.
Yeah.
But which sister at that point? One of her sisters basically went from being okay with me to hating my guts in that moment.
Cried a lot.
Just fell apart, which then made her, who she's a big time feeler. She can, like, empathy is not something she has to put any effort into. She just feels it. So now, anyway, we've got a sister that hates me.
She doesn't hate you. She just isn't sure
at that
she likes
moment.
you. Oh, okay.
At that moment. We're cool now.
Yeah.
15 years later. Cool. Yeah. So fast forwarding the story, because we don't need to take the entire episode going detail by detail.
Yeah.
I am loving this, though. This is great.
What it did do, though, at that point, her opening her heart a little bit within a few months and us planning a wedding. This is where I'd said earlier, her like getting to this level was apparently necessary to kind of pull out what was in both of our hearts that wasn't good. And for me, it was, she wasn't going to be pushed and I wanted my way. And it wasn't like this mean spirited. It was just like, I wanted to be married. At that moment I think I just turned 20. Oh, it was on my birthday.
Yeah.
When I turned 22.
On your birthday. Yeah.
So I'm 22 years old. I have a college degree. I have the company I'm going to be working for a long time. This is what's next.
Right.
It does not take, 12 months to plan this wedding. We can do this in like 6.
Yeah.
And she just wasn't having it. And it highlighted having to like start a wedding and marriage planning, highlighted still the parts of our relationship that was just broken. And one of them, the big one for me, was when like things aren't happening the way I think they should happen, I would use anger to try to get you to do what I want you to do because I think it's right. And so that she just, at that point, that's when she just locks up and just won't even talk. She's calling me out on that, which then makes me even more mad. And then, so it took a while, but basically we were at the point where it's like, not only do we not need to get married, maybe we shouldn't even be together. So lots of details that led up to this, and things that I think we were trying to do the right thing, but ended up not doing the right thing. We just called off our engagement, and then potentially was just like, well, if we're going to call off an engagement, do we just call off the whole relationship? Let's just take 2 weeks apart and even find out, is this really a thing? And so we just didn't talk for 2 weeks. And for me, it caused not, I mean, at that point I broke her heart. But then like, apparently I broke all of her sister's hearts as well. So I already had one sister that wasn't sure about me. I made sure that the other sister hated me as well. In that season, anyway. And now my future brother-in-laws at that time, who were just kind of dating sisters, they're like, this guy's a jerk. You leave him and don't ever get back with him. He's a terrible person. And so Josh and I had talked through some things there. We're still coworkers, still going to work every day. And it was rough. And again, it was us trying to do the right thing, but doing the wrong thing. Because we were both at fault. I had the greater fault, and I'm the one who kind of had this like, fine, this is what we're going to do. Trying to do the right thing, but going too far, too fast. And we just called it off. But for me, that 2 weeks ended up being a good kind of breakdown. That was basically everything I'm doing up to this point isn't going to work. And that after a few days of reflecting on it, wanting to say it's your fault and then not having her to blame, like, because I'm by myself.
You're alone,
and having to take the time to take it to Jesus, not wanting to, but knowing you have to, and taking it to Jesus, and the mirror constantly being put up, and then like pushing that away, but it's her fault and she should have, and all that stuff. And then you have that for a number of days where you don't have ways of short-circuiting that and using excuses. It just came down to, you're prideful, and your pride is going to do far worse if it doesn't get fixed. And so that was when I just had to come face to face with humility. And that's been a journey ever since. It's been the clear marker, but I did do the damage. And just because I got some transformative moment, that was a very catalytic season for me, does not mean that all the damage was healed quickly. And so it took a long time, more than 7, 8, 9, 10 months of work and relationship to prove like, I'm not putting on a show. I genuinely care about you, and I'm not going to manipulate you. I'm working through this, and here's how me processing this with you. And so our relationship deepened through that, but she still wasn't given much of an inch through most of that process until finally, like, the re-engagement was not a singular moment. It was more just like over the course of time, we're like, I think we're ready to try this again. It wasn't like a kneel down moment or anything. It just was like, let's start planning a wedding. It was almost like that kind of, here's the ring again,
I think when
different ring.
He stopped pushing and making it happen the way he had, perceived it or seen it in his mind to be. it's like he did take on, God, whatever you say.
Yeah.
And so it became less about his timing and his way. And when he rested in Jesus, you're the one that spoke this to both of us, and you're going to bring it about. It's like everything changed.
Yeah.
And I think that I stayed so guarded through that whole process because I was waiting for that. I could see in the beginning that, all right, we know where this is going to end up, but what's the journey to get there?
Yeah.
You know, and how are we really in unity together? Things felt things didn't feel peaceful throughout the process. And there were several very important conversations that took place. And one of those on my end in that 2 weeks was me really, my heart was my desire was to honor my parents. And I think that I hadn't fully recognized them trusting him.
Yeah.
And I needed that. And as a daughter of theirs, and as well as recognizing my sisters are watching,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my brother had already been married, but my sisters are watching these steps, you know, how I do this. It was really important to me to set a good example in that. And I think that was just even how I was raised is, you know, you are a leader and you are an example. And so I was super protective of my heart because I needed to know my parents trusted him.
Yeah.
Just a lot like how, God, if you trust, then, or I can trust because you're saying this. And so in that 2 weeks, my heart did change. My heart was more open to it. And I remember my dad asking me the question, you either love him or you don't love him. And when that came, kind of like you described, you had to look at yourself in the mirror. I think that was a moment for me to say, okay, it is my choice. And I think I had put that responsibility on others to make that choice for me. Or not really for me, but to highly influence that choice. And it was a trust that I had to have in God because I did have, I'm very thankful for the dad I had. And he was a great dad, and I wanted that from him, you know.
Yeah.
But I was asking that from him at like 22. My dad was much older than that. And so anyways, it was just this transfer of even leadership in my life. Am I willing to follow, you know, him? And so that's, I think, what it was. And it is kind of complicated, but I needed that rest and that peace in my heart. You know?
We learned so much. One of the things that's where my learning was God's will happens God's way and in God's timing, or it's not ultimately his will.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned patience and endurance and not pushing, how to trust if God's will. I have a part to play in this, but I can't push it.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, as much as I wish it didn't happen, as much as I wish we could have done it different, if we'd have just been a little more mature, we could have walked through it a different way. And lots of things that could have happened. But one thing I'm grateful for is that it happened before we were married.
Oh, yeah.
Because that kind of crash, most couples have in their first 1 to 7 years of marriage, and often it breaks their relation. It just breaks their relationship. They can't get through it. And we got all that beforehand. So it's like, even though, you know, we've had plenty of disagreements, we've had even a few fights that just like we really disagree and we're very passionate about our disagreement and we do not see eye to eye. It's like our relationship was already tested when we had a way out.
Right.
So that now when it's being tested again, we already know we're going to stick with each other.
Yeah.
And so that learning was pivotal for us being able to, if I could maybe phrase it, accomplish more married faster, elevate in leadership faster, because there's certain things we learned before we got married rather than what every married couple has to go through certain learnings.
Yeah.
We learned that before we were married. And so I feel like that strengthened us in a much, much deeper way than if it had happened after we were married.
Yeah. And we began seeing from that time period that like we really were fighting for the same thing, but we were fighting against each other.
Right.
We were almost, you know, just at odds, where God really showed us what does it mean to fight on the same team.
Yeah.
And that has been foundational even in our marriage now, is how do we really be a team? Not how do I get my thing and you get your thing,
Right.
but how do we work together?
And I've heard you guys preach that for a very long time.
Yeah.
That
and
be a
that
team.
came out of that season for sure.
Which is awesome.
And I mean, all that we've done in our 13 years of marriage has been because that's a kind of a continual marker for us that sometimes when we're in disagreement or when we're really pushing against each other, it's like, it's even important to keep vocalizing we're on the same team. We are on the same team. We're passionate about this, and we're passionately coming from two different perspectives. But like, let's just remember we're on the same team, because it's all too easy to start seeing each other as competitors, or worse yet, enemies towards a common goal. And now raising 5 children, having a very active lifestyle and a lot of leadership responsibilities, there are more opportunities for tension and contention and disagreement. And so we navigate that by having one of that being one of our core foundational understandings and learnings in marriage, is that we are on the same team. Whatever we're fighting for, we're fighting together. It looks like we're fighting against each other, but whatever this is, let's talk about it enough to find out how we are fighting for the same thing.
Yeah. Because that even strengthens the ministry that you guys carry together. Because I remember this season differently. Obviously, I wasn't any part of any of this and had no awareness of what was going on. But I remember sitting in your youth group, things are great.
Things are not
Things are very depressing, and all of a sudden I feel really bad after every sermon. And then all of a sudden things are great again. And so I remember like the way that it affected your ministry. And so now you guys kind of had this team uniting thing come together, which sounds so simple, right? Like it sounds very, very simple. We're on the same team. We have this. We carry the same last name. People say different ways, but at the end of the day, like, it's not easy to walk out.
No.
So now we've gotten to, you guys are married.
Yes.
You made it. It's
it.
official. It was a beautiful wedding.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was there. Remember?
You were in Hobbit form.
I was.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's a long
Another story for another time.
Yes.
Let's just say my brother was incredibly creative with bringing the ring to me when my dad asked for the ring.
The one ring.
The one ring.
Yes. So now, kind of, we've talked about reflecting in the previous episode. So how many years have you guys been married now?
So a little over a month ago at the recording of this podcast episode, we celebrated 13 years. So our marriage is officially a teenager.
Oh, very nice. 13 years.
13 years.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Congratulations, you guys. And how many children?
5 children.
Yes.
5 children.
I was quizzing him, see if he remembers.
They are 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2. We had a kid every even year for 10 years or for 8 years. And then now we've 10 years of parenting and almost 10 straight years of her being pregnant or nursing.
Yeah, that's some tough stuff. I'm in the thick of that right now, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
So I think, we've talked about what you learned through your engagement and what you learned through that. But in those 13 years, are there pivotal things or moments where you kind of had what you learned, I guess, what you stood on and what you leaned against during those times?
Sure.
And this can be positives or they don't all have to feel so negative.
As I've already stated, like in intentional living, almost every single one of my growth spurts came through pain.
Yeah.
Came through dark seasons, came through trials and pressure. Very rarely do I have this mountaintop, enjoyable, high experience that I really grew from. I enjoy it when it happens, but I know that that's usually not what brings the growth in our lives.
Not the norm.
So most of our growing in our relationship and marriage came through pain of some kind, came through some trial, some difficulty. We've had a number of those. Probably the one that would be the more recent and connect with people the most was with our last child, our son Urias. But it didn't begin when he was born and we had all those medical issues. It began a lot before then when this is part of our learning on how much we really do have to rely on Jesus. And we do that individually and together. So like her relationship with Jesus is more important than her relationship with me.
Yeah.
My relationship with Jesus is more important than my relationship with her. But then we also have a relationship with Jesus together that matters and is going to get us through the hard times. And so, I'll let you explain or define that season as much as you want to.
Yeah. I'm kind of jumping really far ahead, but this is recent and, about
a little more 3 years ago.
Yeah, a little bit over 3 years ago. I felt like in my life, like the lights went out. It was like I entered into something and just a real depressing season in my life. I hate even using that word. because,
And the way we've talked about it is not that you struggled with depression. It was that feelings of depression were much more prominent, trying to attack you, come upon you, entreat you.
Yeah. And so,
and you were freshly pregnant with Urias.
Yeah. And so just in that season, having to use the things that we had already been working at in our marriage to endure such a season. And, I'm just being real that like I felt just such a spiritual battle going on, but yet I felt not strong enough to endure what I was feeling. And so I'm trying to think where to really take this, except for that it was tough. And I feel like that through our relationship, I learned new faces of the faithfulness of God in that season. And a lot of that was even through marriage, that when I didn't really like myself or understand why I was feeling all those things, when I was going through my own turmoil within me, Jacob's faithfulness to encourage me, his faithfulness to remind me who I was, his faithfulness to love me through a time that I think I spent more time trying to understand it than actually knowing what was going on.
Right.
And it's more so in reflection and hindsight that God was faithful to carry me through. And it's not something that I'm proud of, or even I still sometimes process it and it's confusing. But the truth is that we don't wrestle just against flesh and blood. We do wrestle against, principalities and stuff like that. And so I had that perspective on it, and I was determined to make it through. But I think I spent a whole lot of time trying to figure out where'd this come from and why do I feel this way. And Urias being born, it made so much sense because, I feel like, Jacob, he might have already shared, has gone through journeys of transformation over the course of years of learning to pray and encountering things in his health that he had to say, God, what's going on? And the Lord telling him, your prayer life stinks and you need to, I don't know. There's just been this journey. And for me, it almost felt like I had a crash course in how to be prepared for the hardest thing in my life, And it's like I had that sense throughout, but it took so much focus for me to endure what I felt like I was up against. I had many dreams during that time, and some of them were disturbing dreams of just really feeling heaviness. And so I don't know that it was, I almost didn't feel hope because I couldn't understand what was going on, and hope deferred makes your heart sick. And so anyway, that's just a really quick, that's kind of what I was going through. And it's taken even 3 years from now to really see it clear. And when I was walking through it, it's almost like walking through the woods, unsure of what's really around you.
Yeah.
And that was a tough time. Definitely a tough time.
It's where our relationship with the Lord and then with each other had to deepen, because then we encounter the greatest, spiritual warfare that works its way in the natural that we ever had to encounter with, our son being born dead, us seeing him raised to life, but then facing a lifetime of medical prognosis that was debilitating and terminal. And we had to stand and believe for his healing and go through what, we had 4 healthy babies up to that point. Birthing was not that big a deal for Hannah. I mean, it was a big enough deal to be a birthing.
And honestly, I'm one of those weird people. I loved being pregnant. And so to have such a stark difference of that was enjoyable seasons for me, and then getting pregnant with our 5th and is something just felt different. I never associated it though with being pregnant. It just, that never was that because of that. I knew it was bigger than me. It wasn't just what I was, it wasn't that I was pregnant, because I knew enough. In my prayer with the Lord, he revealed that to me. And nothing's wrong. You're in a battle. And I'm thankful for that, his voice in those times. And there's so many moments where he spoke clearly his word of, apart from me, you can do nothing. And I really had to walk that out. Okay, Jesus, today I can't make it through the day unless you're here, and learning his peace and his faithfulness when my feelings were completely against that.
Yeah.
And being able to walk out, God, I believe you beyond the way I feel. And he was so faithful to, just walk me through that. So I had that going on, and I mean, still raising 4 kids at the time. That's
what I was going to say. On top of that, you still had 4 children.
Yeah, and Jacob had gone through transition and work, and so it seemed as though it was a season to rest and be comfortable, but it was not. It was a season of, I've called you to battle, and it's almost like I had to find the armor, understand the armor, be able to navigate new armor and new levels of things. And like I said, I had a couple dreams in that time, and so that carried me through,
Yeah.
But I knew that the biggest thing was don't give up. I didn't even know what giving up really looked like. It was just a matter of, God, I'm going to trust you. You've been faithful every time through. And I learned even in those times that my understanding of his faithfulness grew, because, I had made great choices my whole life, and you hear, when you're making those choices, great things happen. And so this completely took me off guard. I'm like, why am I walking through this? Nothing is wrong in my life, all this stuff. And spent so much time trying to understand it. That really didn't give me the answers. Yeah. But I think it was this, like, God, I just trust you. You're going to get me through this. So I've talked a lot. It's your turn.
No, that's good stuff. Because it was preparation for then what happened with our son, and then, 20 days in the NICU, and then believing he's healed, and then having to go through another 8, 9 months, 10 months of this doctor's check-in, this specialist check-in, and then us continually, like, I'm telling you, he's healthy, he's healed. And eventually about a year in, like, they're seeing it, but like that kind of, it's not like this immediate thing that we had to endure. We had to pray. We had to trust the Lord.
You had to believe when you didn't see it. Yeah.
And then working through even some transitions in work, it's like God had to elevate us to a level of leadership, because then, 2020 hit, and we're dealing with significant ministry issues. And then my dad has a heart attack, and then COVID, and it's like, all that was preparation for being able to endure through a very difficult season of ministry and leadership and doing it together. And, our marriage is where I had to learn face-to-face. The concept I teach on relationship and staying face-to-face, it comes from marriage. It comes from all the times I get mad and want to turn away. And so learning to practice turning toward each other and repenting and humbling myself when I'd much rather just be petulant and frustrated and blaming. So all of that is just, it keeps us having a perspective that our marriage means more than just our relationship. All of this is for something. It's something bigger than just ourselves. And in the very least, we know it's for raising 5 disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ. But even seeing that what God works in us is even bigger than that. And that our marriage is constant preparation of that teamwork to lead at higher and higher levels, because the world isn't getting any easier and it isn't getting any more light. So we've had to navigate a lot of that hard stuff, and even just bouts with me of the similar thing, not quite as heavy, but even just feelings of depression and different feelings like that trying to come upon me, and I'm having to navigate that and lean on her for during those seasons. And anyway, that's
I think
kind of some of those seasons for us.
It is that fight for hope, and I think that is not just a relationship thing. That is our world. Our world wants to anchor their hope in something, and so I think we do walk through things so we can not only know how to navigate it ourselves, but to navigate it with others. And so I know that's a big passion of Jacob and I's, is hope, and really what true hope is, and what that looks like being walked out every single day. And so, Adea, which is our oldest daughter, her middle name is Hope. And that was in a time where that God really walked Jacob through what that was, what hope was. And so I don't know. I think that marriage is so, it can be so much fun, but you can also grow so much together.
Yeah.
And we've just chosen to be committed to the enduring of whatever comes our way. And at least I know he's with me, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's a good feeling when you're navigating life and you're navigating kids, you're navigating not understanding why things are the way they are, but prayer is important in those times as well.
Yeah.
So
And I think kind of to sum up some of what you guys said was one thing that you said I believe it was last episode, with you were prepared for these things.
Yeah.
You didn't plan for these things, but you guys came in prepared.
Yeah.
And you'd already dealt with several things beforehand.
Yeah.
I mean, I even know, and we don't have to dive deep into this story, but your first pregnancy was ended in a miscarriage.
Absolutely.
And I know that for me, there's a weird connection between us, not just we kind of grow up in the same place, but for me and my wife, our first pregnancy was a miscarriage. Our last child was born not breathing, turning blue, got called the NICU. And it was cool because I was able to pull on things that I had learned from you guys and picked up from you guys. So things like how to deal with a miscarriage, something that as a teenager, I maybe wasn't fully paying attention to what was going on with you guys, but I paid attention to how you handled what you're going through.
Yeah.
And then what you guys went through with Urias, you know, as Owen was born, I found those scriptures coming right out of my mouth unintentionally.
Yeah.
And so it was just, I think what you guys do together as a team, the ministry that you carry as a team, right? It's not just Jacob Sheriff, right? And it's not just Hannah Sheriff, but it's you two together combined that is ministering to people. Your relationship is what enables you to even do what you do.
Yeah.
And so, you know, man, you guys are just such an inspiration.
Thank you.
So
We're not very inspirational with fun and spontaneity.
Yeah.
which
So I
brings
will
me
say-
to my next question, actually.
Gosh.
And it's simple.
We're kind of serious people.
I know this is simple. And all I want to know is what is one of your happiest memories together? So like just a happy memory. It's individual though. And this is super spontaneous. I'm
that's
doing
not a-
this on the
that's not a
fly.
prepared question.
It may not actually be their most happy moment, but maybe just the first one that pops in your head, like this happy reflective moment.
Gosh.
We've had a
we're
little bit
very
of
happy
downs.
Together. Yeah. Let's see.
We do joke about we've been on 3 cruises together.
Yes.
And our honeymoon is the only one she enjoyed. The other 2 she hated.
Yeah.
I was fine. It was fine with me.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say like our happiest moment was our honeymoon. It's been all downhill from there.
Yeah. Well, we do take our birthdays fall about 6 months apart.
Yeah.
So we take time around his birthday to take a 2-day trip, and then our anniversary falls around my birthday, so we kind of put those together. And I mean, some of my favorite things is just those trips together, where life is just slowed down. You just can sleep and just, exist.
Yeah.
So I think sleep is
Dear
a very
Lord.
happy memory for
Yes.
us. But man, we're pretty intentional people, and we've had to, but we both value that. And so it doesn't, it's not a point of contention in our relationship.
Yeah, being serious doesn't always. I get off base a little bit sometimes. So serious. It's not dour. It's not depressing how serious we are. We're just on mission. Like I'm living on purpose, and like the world is broken, and like we have the message. And so we're both very driven. We're both very obstinate. We have high endurance levels. We're very intentional. And it just comes out as just seriousness. And so we honestly have to practice laughing. Like our children has, like, especially our boys.
Israel, for sure.
Israel, and then Urias now is all boy, just crazy wild, which we're okay. I mean, we did raise him from the dead. So I think however he
could
turns
be a little
out
wild.
Yes.
but they're just funny. And so how serious I can be is like the kids have a competition as to who can make dad laugh.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what it is. I just don't laugh a lot. And so, this year we invited her sister and her sister's husband to live with us and bring 4 kids. And so our home has 9 children right now, and they value fun and laughter a whole lot more than we did.
Yeah.
So them living with us has just brought the laughter up, and we end up joking around and having fun more frequently because of that.
Yeah.
So we're just,
It's awesome. And the coffee intake.
Oh
right?
gosh, yeah.
You brought the coffee intake up.
Brother-in-law is really, really good at making coffee. So
Yeah.
he is our barista
Yeah.
every morning.
And
wonderful.
Abby, my sister, I mean, she's always been fun ever since I've known her.
If I picture Abby in my head, I just see her smiling.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I think
it's that 95% of the time.
I think that, just growing up with her, I'm like, she's all the fun. Why do I have to be fun? Let me just hang around her.
So we just invited the fun
But I
in our
did think
home.
of a couple of moments as we've been sitting here. And, Jacob and I, long time ago, we had a few kids, but we did camps together.
Yeah.
And those were some of my favorite memories of fun, because I don't know, we are very intentional people. And
So let's just define how she just said fun.
Yeah.
So it's ministry, and
is
I
fun.
agree. That was some of it was like intense, but not serious.
Yeah.
But it was intense.
Yeah.
So fun is moving out to a camp that's a lot of dirt and sand and, outdoors.
Yeah.
With children, sleeping like 4 hours a night, running like 4
Internship.
camps and intern programs with 40 teenagers, 50 teenagers for 8 straight weeks.
Yeah.
That's fun for us. That tells you what kind of people we are.
Yeah. That is. Yeah.
Yeah. And we did it with two kids. I don't think once we had Olivia, I don't think we,
No,
there might've been
I
one.
was out there
one
with
year.
Emma.
Okay. She carried 1 year longer than I was able to be out there, just with changes in responsibilities and stuff.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. We need to work on that one. Maybe we'll have a better answer for you when we do this again.
But there might not be even one. But generally, the holidays, Christmas is her favorite time of year, and so that has created a lot of fun memories and joyful memories. And then, like she said, we take 2 short trips a year, where it's just the 2 of us.
Yeah.
And those generally end up being some of the best time of the year with
That's
us,
awesome.
because we just, life is always active for us.
Yeah.
We're trying to eliminate hurry and clutter.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's less active. We're
Right.
5 children, ministry, so we're very active. So a lot of life happens on the go, and we try to enjoy moments as they happen. But those moments are intentional about bringing the world to a screeching halt and recalibrating our marriage and our family in the direction of where God's taking it. And I highly recommend at least one of those for every married couple. One, even if it's a short vacation, one vacation, just the 2 of you together.
Even a stay-at-home one is great. We've done those too.
We've done those too.
But I do recall when the kids were we have a few in school now, but when I was home with them full time, and Jacob was in a new place and even ministry, and he worked all the time, we did set apart Family Fun Day, and we called it that on Fridays when he would be off. And it may have been like homemade ice cream from a bucket at home, but we made sure somehow laughter and fun was in the mix. And so
That's awesome.
I think it's like being able to live intentional to where you just take every moment, whether it's a ministry moment or it's a just family, and choose to find joy in it. And that's just kind of been how we've chosen to just see every moment as a happy moment, even hardship. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys can't get through all these things without some books or support or something. So is there anything that you guys have for our recommended reading this week that you could kind of help us out with?
2 years ago, year and a half ago,
Yeah,
it was
I think so.
not our last anniversary, but the anniversary before that, we both read His Needs, Her Needs by Willard J. Harley. And then I think there's like a junior or something like
I think
that.
it's
But
junior,
His Needs, Her Needs, which identifies 10 emotional needs, and then your top 5 and what those mean and how to meet those in each other. And it's meeting those emotional needs that cultivate romantic love. And so then in typical intentional living fashion, I printed out all the worksheets. I took her on a date, and we talked through how we rank our different emotional needs.
A date.
And then like score, how am I doing? What does this mean to you? So like affection is her number 2 need.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What kinds of affection? Words, touch, how many times a day. I had no clue that for her, meeting that need means some type of affection 6 times a day.
Yeah.
When like I rank it, and it's like, if we just acknowledge we're good, I mean, touch is cool, but like just acknowledge we're good. I just need that daily, just once a day. And so it's important to know that like your need isn't necessarily hers, and then how to meet each other.
Yeah.
And then to boot, I created a little score sheet where she gets to score me on how well I'm doing in meeting her needs weekly. So his needs, her needs. And then the same guy wrote a book, Love Busters. So he's talking about the needs that you meet and recognizing how to meet those needs, and then also recognizing the things that get in the way of romantic love. So like angry outbursts, critical judgments, a few independent behavior, things like that. So those 2 books together are really good. We read this year 3 big questions for every frantic family.
Yeah, that one's really good.
Which has been really good. We're in our rally cry right now, getting our family focused on who we are, what makes our family unique, what's most important right now, and getting our rhythms healthy and all that. Those are 3 big ones.
Another one I can think of that we read early on was one called Sheet Music, and that one was just really great in making a healthy intimacy life. So that one's really good.
Highly recommend that for engaged couples.
Yeah.
It's good anytime to read, but there's probably a fourth of the book is focused on like wedding night, early in your marriage and sexual intimacy. So that definitely in that time. And he has a few follow-up books that I haven't gotten around to, but we've kept Sheet Music, and that's been a good one to understand these things. And it just always, we tend to not just learn on the go, but get some type of understanding or knowledge and then put it into practice to try to bridge the gap. As I've said before, bridge the gap between inspiration and transformation. You have to integrate it into your life. Yeah. And so we practice those things.
I was going to say one more thing that we've started pretty new is doing reading plans together. And those varying from like we're doing some on marriage together and doing the part where you have to talk it out or talk it over and getting each other's responses. That's a great tool when you have a busy schedule, busy life, but you're able to just, hey, that's cool what he said, and just kind of stay in the conversation. He mentioned emotional needs, and my top one is intimate conversation and staying connected through communication. And so that one really means a lot to me. And doing things around money and keeping that, because that's part of marriage, is how do you manage money? And that could be a whole other
I was about to say, there's
episode.
a whole lot that we still have to dive into.
So, but that, it's being able to, what things in marriage do you navigate, and how do you do those without shame? And being able to have conversations, being able to read books about those things, and being able to talk it out and see how to be a team. So
that's awesome.
A book,
parenting stuff,
Yeah. Well, there we go. Parenting books we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
Parenting's a whole another subject.
Yeah.
But another one that it's not a marriage book, but has a chapter on marriage is Emotionally Healthy Leader. There's a whole chapter on leading out of your marriage or singleness, but the marriage part, and making marriage your most important ministry. That I think is pretty critical for any leader, that's whether ministry leader or marketplace leader or just community leader of any kind. Making your marriage the most important ministry you have, and how to do that is really important, and he does a really good job. He also has Emotionally Healthy Relationships that I've not dug into, but I like all of his other stuff. That's by Pete Scazzaro. That I know that one would be good too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
All right,
cool.
Well, Hannah, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you,
I love all the stories I got to hear about Jacob
that I probably wouldn't tell myself.
Yes, I know. I feel so much better about myself after this episode. Man, no, honestly though, you guys, that was great. I enjoyed the conversation, enjoyed the learning. It was wonderful. So, hey, and if you enjoyed this too, leave us a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you would like to see more comment. If you'd like to see more content like this, and refer this to a friend, send it out to a friend, leave us a review on our iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, and we'll catch you in the next one.